You're watching Bloomberg Tech Asia. I'm Shery Ahn in Tokyo. AI hyperscalers around the world are quickly finding that it's not the GPUs, not the HBMs, and not the real estate that's the toughest bottleneck in the build-out of data center capacity. It's power. Here's a look at why this is leading many countries to conclude that nuclear energy may be the answer and why Asia is setting the pace.
Energy is the biggest constraint of the global AI build-out, and many countries are turning to nuclear power to address it. Meeting that demand will require long-term policy commitments, major engineering and logistical advances, and vast amounts of capital. Governments are under pressure to secure enough power to stay competitive in the AI race while keeping costs under control and voters on side. And as the US and Europe debate how far and how fast to invest, much of Asia is already moving ahead. Perhaps nowhere better reflects the global nuclear revival than Japan. 15 years after the Fukushima disaster prompted the shutdown of all its reactors, the country is gradually bringing nuclear power back online. Global nuclear capacity is set to climb 44% over the next decade. Bloomberg NEF puts Asia at the center of those ambitions. While Japan has begun to restart its reactors, China, India, South Korea and Bangladesh are among nations building new ones. South Korea, a major beneficiary of the AI boom, has turned to nuclear to support its growing power demand for its memory chip industry. Bloomberg NEF estimates South Korea's power demand will grow 22% by 2035, with industry and data centers accounting for a third of the increase. But nowhere is the scale greater than in China. China now accounts for roughly 50% of worldwide reactor builds, and Bloomberg NEF sees China overtaking US installed capacity by 2030. China also leads in nuclear innovation. Investment in fusion companies topped $1.2 billion in 2024, matching the United States, with commercialization expected around 2040. India has set a target of 100 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity by 2047. That's an 11-fold jump from its current installed base. Giants like the Adani Group and Reliance Industries have made major commitments to nuclear this year after Prime Minister Narendra Modi opened up the strategically sensitive sector. In the US, nuclear energy is also making a comeback. And one of the most striking developments, 3 Mile Island, the site of the most famous US nuclear accident, is returning online to power data centers. The nuclear renaissance is here, and Asia is leading the way.
Despite that push by companies and the Trump administration to accelerate nuclear power capacity, its complex regulatory framework, labor shortages, and the fragmented distribution grid prevent the U.S. from scaling up its energy build-out. Meanwhile, in the EU, major decisions on going nuclear are gaining momentum but remain politically sensitive. Germany famously shut all of its nuclear plants following the Fukushima disaster. And Europe's nuclear energy leader, France, is grappling with disruptions caused by its aging power plants, forcing the government to revert to oil-fueled generation. Let's discuss the prospects for nuclear energy globally. Joining us now is Nobuo Tanaka. He's a former executive director at the International Energy Agency. And of course, you continue working with the agency as an emeritus status as well. So it's really great that you could make time for us. But we were talking a little bit about the difference on how much nuclear energy proliferation has accelerated, or that push across Asia. How does this differ from the Western countries?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Shery. The Asian countries need energy and electricity to make the economic growth, and Asia is a growth center. So certainly, Asia needs the very sustainable model of the electricity, and for that sake, nuclear will be a very important part of their portfolio. Electrification is a key element of reducing dependency of oil and gas from Middle East. So they are urged to do this electrification, and nuclear small modular reactor particularly will play a very important role. But they have to learn from Japan's mistake in Fukushima, for example.
I want to get there, but first of all, let me ask about what's happening globally as well when it comes to this awareness of the need of nuclear power in the energy mix, given given, of course, all of the geopolitical upheavals that we've seen in the past few years?
Yeah, because thanks to the current climate change mitigation, current economic issue, energy security issue, nuclear focus is very much in the center of the discussion of the energy policy. Germany may change their policy against nuclear to more in favor. The Prime Minister announced that. And Asia, it needs the kind of policy of very safe nuclear as well as affordable nuclear. For that, I'm strongly urging Asian countries, particularly ASEAN, should take a coordinated position of the nuclear model. If they have the similar model and standardized model of the nuclear, the cost will be smaller because you can make a coalition of purchase and procurement will push the provider to reduce the price. And at the same time, regulatory framework could be similar, right? If all the countries of ASEAN have the same reactor, the regulatory framework should be same. So then you can keep the safer model of the nuclear power. So I urge ASEAN countries have now connecting each other by Asian super grid, and by that you have to make a kind of sense of where to locate the nuclear power in the best mix of the energy sources. And I think this is a great opportunity. The ASEAN can make a difference.
You mentioned small modular reactors, SMRs. How big a game changer are they?
This is going to be interesting because small modular reactor can be a dedicated power for the data center or AI generation. So it's not connected to the grid, but used for particularly to the industry for the heat or particularly for the data centers. So I think, and also the small modular reactors' best point is that the safety and reduce the risk of accident. And emergency planning zone of SMR can be contained within the plant. That means you don't have the evacuation plan for the surrounding population. This will give a much better public acceptance of the reactor, and the design of the small modular reactor can fit to the local needs, right? Data center needs or more backup to the renewables or security issues. So I think local people can accept small modular reactor much better than the large reactor, which serve to the urban areas, but not themselves.
Right.
They're only sharing the risk. That is the reason why the negative reaction happens from the host community.
I mean, you mentioned what happened in Fukushima. We have 3 Mile Islands as well. We have Chernobyl as well. And we have nuclear generation electricity actually halving since the 1990s or so. Are we seeing that change in mentality now, given the need?
Yeah, I think because of the accident, certainly the caution about the safety increases. But at the same time, if the data center needs such amount of huge electricity, in a way, the decarbonized power, nuclear is the only answer. So public acceptance to the nuclear, especially the Middle East situation, Ukraine situation, it increased dramatically. So this is a great opportunity. If the governments put the right incentives or right regulatory framework or collaboration among the countries, then I think nuclear may have a very good future.
Are you seeing any moves towards that?
I think so, because the governments are talking about the nuclear collaboration. For example, Korea wants to do more collaboration with Japan for developing the sustainable nuclear model for the future and selling together to the global community. I think US has a very interesting model of sustainable nuclear, which I promote integral fast reactor. It can take care of the waste, radioactive waste, and safety requirement is very good, and also proliferation resistant. Because of the nuclear war threat is everywhere, we have to have a technology which is resistant for the proliferation risk.
When it comes to building that sort of nuclear ecosystem, who do you think across Asia is doing it well?
Asia is the best place to test that kind of model, because Asia is a very growth center of economy, and they have experienced the very risk of the energy security from the Middle East oil, gas, etc. And also, it can be a very good peaceful arrangement of the ASEAN, can show that the nuclear can play a very important role of their alliance and coalition and the peaceful use of the energy for the future. So I really want that ASEAN will carefully take a close look what kind of models of SMRs are available. It is growing in many countries, not yet established, but there are many different types. So I think ASEAN should take a good study of the models, as well as I think ASEAN countries should learn from our mistakes in Fukushima. It is a human error. Human error, you can learn from our mistakes and then avoid the risks of accident. That kind of, well-prepared policy of ASEAN can make an ASEAN Asia as a center of the future sustainable nuclear.
Nobuo Tanaka, really great to get your insights. It's great to see you here in Tokyo. He's the IEA Executive Director Emeritus with his take on the forecast for nuclear power across Asia and the world. Coming up next, we'll actually unpack the revival of Japan's nuclear industry with the next generation of companies betting on that comeback. This is Bloomberg. Japan is undergoing a nuclear revival. The country has unique advantages, including decades of engineering expertise, established reactor makers, and a deep network of specialized suppliers. Those range from major reactor builders like Mitsubishi Heavy and Hitachi to critical component suppliers such as Japan's Steelworks. But Japan's nuclear industry is also shaped by the legacy of the Fukushima disaster. Here's a look at the country's complex relationship with the technology and how it's making a comeback now. Japan was once one of the world's biggest producers of nuclear power. But the 2011 Fukushima disaster, the world's worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl, reshaped its energy policy. All 54 of Japan's reactors were taken offline. Imported fossil fuels filled the gap, and public confidence in atomic energy collapsed. 15 years later, Japan's nuclear revival is gathering pace. It's part of a broader global shift as governments seek carbon-free, around-the-clock electricity to power everything from AI to advanced manufacturing. And nowhere is that demand growing faster than in data centers. Japan is already Asia-Pacific's second-largest market after mainland China. Bloomberg Intelligence says Japanese data center power demand is set to double to 37 terawatt-hours by fiscal 2030.
So how are we going to generate that kind of power to meet the AI needs? At present, the gas power is the main source. But you might wonder, is it really okay to rely on gas that much? I believe that in 2040, 15 years from now, next power source will be nuclear fusion.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has made nuclear a cornerstone of our energy security strategy, arguing it's essential to increase self-sufficiency. But Japan's nuclear resurgence isn't just about bringing yesterday's reactors back online. It's also giving new life to the race for tomorrow's technology, nuclear fusion. Helical Fusion is one of the players betting on that future. Founded in 2021 but leveraging decades of research, it aims to deliver the world's first commercially viable fusion reactor by the 2030s.
Our technology is called helical accelerators, which is invented in Japan around 70 years ago. This kind of double helical structure of the magnetic coil is helical accelerators feature. And this is very good at steady state plasma performance in the reactors. We aim to construct not just a scientific device, but the commercial fusion power plant. And this helical accelerator coil will enable us to create a twisted magnetic field inside the reactors.
Yet the industry's comeback faces hurdles beyond the science. Fusion remains years away from commercialization, costs are massive, and Bloomberg Intelligence says continued government support and international partnerships will be critical.
Japanese government is very positive to support fusion reactors or a fusion power plant system. So we believe we can go together with the Japanese government to make the fusion power plant real in Japan.
But perhaps the biggest challenge isn't technological at all.
There are
still many among the Japanese public who find nuclear power difficult to accept. However, the reality of electricity shortages is already staring us in the face. I believe it's necessary for the government to clearly explain this to the public and steadily take actions to build consensus and acceptance.
15 years after Fukushima, the AI era is now providing the spark for Japan's industrial giants and a new generation of startups to rebuild the nuclear industry. And coming up next, we look closer at the prospects for cleaner nuclear power using fusion technology. OpenStar CEO Ratu Mataira joins us to discuss the race to deliver the holy grail of energy generation. This is Bloomberg. The Fusion Industry Association says the transition of nuclear fusion generation from the lab to the marketplace is now firmly underway, with around $4.5 billion of new funding in the last 12 months. Tech billionaires, including Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, they're among the prominent backers of fusion startups. One of the players in this race is OpenStar Technologies. The New Zealand government-backed startup is betting on a levitated dipole reactor design considered more scalable than traditional tokamaks. In February, it floated a half-ton magnet in plasma heated to over 1 million degrees Celsius, signaling a breakthrough in its push for sustained fusion. The company aims to bring reactors to market in the 2030s with plans to supply commercial grid power during that decade. Joining us from San Francisco is the founder and CEO of OpenStar Technologies, Ratu Mataira. Ratu, really great to have you with us. So how close are we to commercial viability, not only for you, but for the broader nuclear fusion industry?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think this is what excites us about our industry right now, is we've long told a story about decades of working on the science. Now we're seeing engineering solutions that are creating pathways to scale. That's a large part of what we did in the first prototype that we built, and the sizzle reel that you just gave. Thank you for that. But now that the companies are articulating the engineering pathway, that the science is broadly understood by the industry, the real question is becoming, can we design these machines in ways that can be easily maintained, operated? Because it is in those details that the practicalities of scale that will determine the economics and whether or not fusion is actually a useful tool in the race for energy abundance.
So now that you have your first prototype device, this was junior, right? In order to see whether it can work at many times scale, what's the next phase for you?
So the next phase for us is to build a device we call Tahi. Tahi is our demonstration of all of the performance aspects of our particular technology. So Junior was very much a demonstration of plugging together technologies that had not been put together before and showing that they worked as expected. Now we need to prove the performance, and we want to do it in a scenario that's not yet nuclear. So that reduces the cost, it allows us to move significantly faster. And so Tahi allows us to say, if we spend X dollars here, it turns into Y performance here and affects our LCOE here. And so we can answer the majority of the questions that we need to by building that device. And that's what we have New Zealand government support to do over the coming years.
You're seen as a more high-risk, high-reward sort of bet when it comes to nuclear fusion technology, given that it could become a simpler endeavor, but at the same time, it's a very theoretical and engineering challenging work. How do you compare to competitors, especially in trying to make this commercially viable?
So there are probably two major distinctions. So the first, which I've already touched on, is maintainability. So when you build these really complicated machines, typically, we would say that the dipole is the simplest kind of arrangement for a fusion device. You often end up in this problem that the machine is very tightly intercoupled. It's very hard to pull one component out from another without doing a wholesale dismantling of the machine. And so you wonder, are you really doing maintenance, or are you actually just building a brand new power plant every time one of these things wears out? That's not the case in the dipole. You can take the central magnet, which is the kind of complicated, expensive component. You can take that magnet out. You have a magnet that's ready to go back in and provide that role of confining the plasma and keeping that plasma hot. And you can get the power plant back up and running in about 2 weeks. So that's the first point. And then the second point is, you know, the mission of OpenStar and companies like us is to provide clean and abundant energy for the world. But there are other very valuable things that we can do before we get to that milestone that can help us put a commercial engine in behind what we are trying to achieve. And so for us, that would be an application like producing medical isotopes, which is itself a multi-billion-dollar industry per annum, has massive supply chain challenges occurring over the next 5 years, and we're literally saving lives with the products that we would be producing.
It's very interesting that your home is New Zealand. The OpenStar got started there because it's supposed to be nuclear free, right? What do you find in terms of the supply chain, the talent in order to grow your business? Just quickly, if you can.
Yeah, the supply chain and the talent is fantastic. So, I mean, we live in a globally interconnected economy where we can pull in what we need, what we can't make in New Zealand. But on the talent, you've got to remember that New Zealand is now the third most frequent rocket launching nation on Earth. Japan now relies on us to send satellites into space with high responsiveness. We are the kind of country that can work at this kind of highest level of human ingenuity. And so our ability to draw in those engineers locally is fantastic. But I also must say, I'm here in San Francisco for a reason. We have to expand globally in order to solve global scale challenges.
What are you seeing in terms of fundraising? Just very quickly, 30 seconds.
Fundraising, like you said, there's been $4.5 billion last year. That was 70% of an increase on the year before that. We expect that same trend to continue. We're seeing the fundraisers close that reflect that. And so from a fundraising perspective, we believe that all the capital we need to continue our pathway is available, and we're putting that pitch in front of investors as we speak.
Ratu Mataira, really great to get your insights. Founder and CEO of OpenStar Technologies, a New Zealand government-backed company, but of course today joining us from San Francisco. And that's it for this episode of Bloomberg Tech Asia. Stay tuned next month for more. Also check out past episodes and more from our tech coverage on the Bloomberg Video Hub. This is Bloomberg.